It feels like every time you start to get a grip on just how fast AI is moving, something comes along that, well, really throws you for a loop. And I got to say, this latest release from Anthropic, this Claude 3.7 Sonnet, has that feel like we're seeing a real shift happening right in front of us.
Oh, absolutely. The amount of buzz and in-depth analysis we're seeing around this release, especially when you compare it head to head with, the big players like GPT-3 and DeepSeek and, of course, Google's Gemini, it's a pretty clear sign that we're looking at something significant here.
For sure. So for our listeners out there who are following along with these developments, think of this as us cutting through the noise and getting right to the core of what makes Claude 3.7 so interesting. We've been digging into the comparisons, all the evaluations that are out there, and we're going to pull out the key insights. We want you to come away from this understanding why this particular model is generating so much excitement and what it really means for the future of AI. We're going to focus on the stuff that's going to have the biggest impact, for anyone who wants to quickly grasp what's important. We're looking at some recent data that puts Claude 3.7 right up against its main competitors.
Okay.
All right, let's get into it. The first thing that really jumps out at you is this whole concept of hybrid reasoning, right?
Yeah, and what's so fascinating about it is the approach Anthropic has taken to solving a problem that's it's been a real sticking point in AI for a long time, and that's the trade-off between speed and the ability to do really deep, complex reasoning. Traditionally, models have been optimized for one or the other.
Right.
You've got your models like GPT-3 that are, super fast at generating responses. And then you have others like DeepSeek that are really powerful in very specific computationally intensive areas. And then there's Gemini, which, aims for more general intelligence, but sometimes its performance can be a bit all over the place depending on what you're asking it to do.
It almost felt like you had to choose what you were going for, right? Like, do you want a quick but maybe superficial answer? Or are you willing to wait for something that's been more thoroughly thought out?
Mhm.
But it seems like Claude 3.7 is trying to change that whole dynamic with this hybrid approach.
Exactly. Instead of having, separate models or different optimization pathways for different kinds of cognitive tasks, Claude 3.7 has this ability to switch between different modes of thinking all within a single architecture. It's not just about being faster or being smart. It's about being able to understand what the task requires and then adapting its thinking to fit that task. And that's something that, is much closer to how human intelligence actually works.
I like that way of putting it.
Mhm.
So can you give us like a real world example of how this plays out?
Sure. Think about a simple question like, what's 2 plus 2? Claude 3.7 can process that and give you an answer almost instantly. It's incredibly fast. But now, imagine you ask it to plan a 2-week trip to Italy, taking into account things like weather, budget, and even travel restrictions between different cities. In that case, the model shifts gears. It goes into this more deliberate step-by-step mode where it pulls in a much wider range of information and takes the time to really analyze everything before it gives you a comprehensive, well-reasoned plan.
So it's like having a system that can like pull a basic facts in a snap, but it can also engage in some really intricate planning and problem solving all within the same model. That sounds incredibly efficient if it works the way they say it does.
And that's the key benefit for users, right? You no longer have to choose between speed and depth. You get both in one package. And this is something that seems to give Claude 3.7 a real advantage over models that are, more specialized or stuck in a single mode of thinking.
And it's not just theoretical either, right? Anthropic has run its own tests, and the results seem to back up their claims pretty strongly.
That's right. Their internal testing data shows that Claude 3.7 is scoring higher in several key areas, like general problem solving, following complex instructions, and handling those really intricate multi-step reasoning tasks, all compared to their earlier Claude models. This suggests that their hybrid reasoning approach isn't just a cool idea, but that it's actually a real measurable improvement in how the model works. And this ability to handle complex tasks so efficiently has led to some really innovative applications, and maybe one of the most exciting is in the realm of software development with Claude Code.
Oh yeah, Claude Code. Now this is something that could be a real game changer for, well, pretty much anyone who writes or works with software. It's more than just suggesting the next line of code, isn't it? It's something much bigger than that.
It is. Claude Code is being described as an agentic AI coding tool, and that's a significant leap forward in the level of automation it brings to software development. Basically, what it means is the AI can act more independently and proactively within the coding environment. It's
Hmm.
not just passively responding to commands, it's actually taking initiative and doing things on its own. We're talking about capabilities that go way beyond simple code completion.
Okay, that makes the whole agentic thing a lot clearer. So,
Yeah.
in practical terms, what can Claude Code actually do? What does it bring to the table?
Well, first of all, it can search and understand entire code repositories. Think about how much time that could save a developer who's trying to navigate a large or unfamiliar code base. But it goes even further than that. It can edit multiple files simultaneously, which is a huge step forward in AI-assisted code modification. It can write and run tests to make sure the code is working correctly, and it can even automate the process of committing and pushing changes to platforms like GitHub. And get this, it can even execute terminal commands, which opens up all sorts of possibilities for automated debugging and even deployment tasks.
Wow, that's a lot more than just getting a suggestion for the next few characters you're typing. It sounds like a real partner in the coding process.
That's the idea. It's about moving from just giving suggestions to actually participating in the whole process of, building and maintaining software. For developers, this means less manual coding and editing, much faster development cycles, and a more efficient and integrated way of working with AI. It's not just about isolated code snippets anymore. Claude 3.7 through Claude Code can actually be part of the team, so to speak.
So, how does this compare to other tools that developers might be using? Because there are already other AI-powered coding assistants out there, right?
That's a good question. Models like GPT-3, they can generate code, but they usually can't do the deeper debugging or work across multiple files in a larger project. Gemini can also write code, but it's not always as seamless or robust as Claude Code when it comes to like real-world development workflows. And DeepSeek, while it's incredibly powerful in certain areas like scientific computing, it's not really designed for the wide range of tasks that software engineers face on a daily basis.
It sounds like Claude Code is specifically designed to bridge that gap, to go beyond just generating code and actually become a truly integrated and helpful part of the entire software development process.
Exactly. And the feedback from Anthropic's own internal testers has been incredibly positive, especially when it comes to using Claude Code on, large, complex projects. This level of automation and integration, it has the potential to really change how we think about AI-assisted coding and maybe even make us less reliant on some of the existing tools that we use.
Okay, so we've got this fundamental improvement in reasoning with the hybrid approach, and then we have this potentially revolutionary tool for software development with Claude Code. Now, taking a step back and looking at the big picture, when we compare Claude 3.7 directly to GPT-3, DeepSeek, and Gemini, what are the major differences we see? What stands out?
When we look at those core capabilities, the advantages of Claude 3.7 really start to come into focus. In terms of reasoning, the hybrid approach gives it a real edge. It can handle those quick, everyday information requests, but it can also tackle really complex, multi-layered analytical problems. GPT-3 is super fast, but it can sometimes struggle with logical consistency when you get into longer, more involved tasks. DeepSeek is amazing at things like math and computational science, but it's not as flexible when it comes to different types of reasoning challenges. And Gemini, well, it's got impressive multimodal understanding, but its structured reasoning can be a bit inconsistent, which can affect its reliability when you're dealing with purely logic-based questions.
And what about when it comes to coding specifically? How does Claude 3.7 stack up against the others in that area?
Well, with Claude Code, it's really in a league of its own. The ability to search, understand, modify, and test code across entire development workflows, that's a major differentiator. GPT-3 can generate code snippets, but it can't do the deeper debugging or work across multiple files in a larger project like Claude Code can. Gemini can produce functional code, but as we talked about earlier, it's a bit more prone to errors, especially in more complex situations. And DeepSeek is, very specialized, so it's not as broadly applicable to the kinds of tasks that most software engineers are doing.
Got it. And finally, what about speed and efficiency? Because that's always a practical consideration, right?
Yeah, for sure. And Claude 3.7 seems to strike a really nice balance there. It can be super fast when you need a quick answer, but it can also shift into a more in-depth, thinking mode when the task calls for it. It's like it's constantly adapting and allocating its resources based on what's needed. GPT-3 is undeniably fast, but sometimes that speed comes at the cost of accuracy or depth of understanding. Gemini can be a bit slower, especially when you have those back and forth multi-turn conversations, which can be a problem in some real-time applications. And DeepSeek, again, it's great in its niche, but it doesn't have the same level of flexibility or adaptability as Claude 3.7.
So it sounds like across the board, Claude 3.7 is presenting a really strong and well-rounded set of capabilities. Now, earlier you mentioned the transparency of Claude 3.7, and I think that's something that deserves a closer look because it seems like a really important differentiator. What makes it so transparent, and why does that matter?
It's one of the few models out there that actually lets you see its thought process, its reasoning behind the answers it gives.
Right, so that's a big difference from what we're used to with, well, a lot of the other big AI models.
Exactly. With models like GPT-3, Gemini, and DeepSeek, you get the output, but you don't really know how the AI got there. It's like a black box. And that can make it really hard to, check if the information is accurate, to debug errors, or even to just understand if the AI is interpreting your request the way you intended it to.
So what are the benefits of having this transparency, this ability to see how the AI is thinking?
Well, for one, it builds trust. When you can see how the AI arrived at a conclusion, you're more likely to trust that the result is accurate. And for developers and researchers, it makes debugging much easier. If there's an error, you can trace it back to the specific step where things went wrong, instead of just having a wrong answer with no explanation. And it also helps with ethical considerations and making sure the AI is aligned with, human values and intentions. By seeing the reasoning process, it's easier to spot potential biases or contradictions in how the AI is thinking, which is important for building safer and more reliable AI systems. And finally, it just creates a better user experience overall. Whether you're using the model for coding, research, or just general problem solving, being able to see its thought process gives you more control, more confidence in the accuracy of the information, and it just makes the whole interaction more satisfying and insightful.
It really underscores the importance of being able to, show your work even for an AI. Now let's talk about some of the mind-blowing performance gains that have been reported with Claude 3.7. What kind of improvements are we seeing?
The benchmarks across a whole range of tasks are really impressive. From math and physics to coding and following complex instructions, it looks like Claude 3.7 is a significant step forward in terms of both efficiency and accuracy.
Can you give us some concrete examples of where these improvements are most noticeable?
Sure. In areas like advanced math and physics, Claude 3.7 is showing a much higher level of precision when working with complex equations compared to its predecessor, Claude 3.5. That means fewer errors, better accuracy in those multi-step problem-solving scenarios, and just overall better logical reasoning in those demanding fields.
And what about the problem of hallucinations, which is something we hear about a lot with these large language models, the tendency for them to make stuff up or give inaccurate information. Has Claude 3.7 made any progress in that area?
It has. It seems that Claude 3.7 has significantly reduced its rate of hallucination, and that makes it much more reliable for tasks where you need accurate information like research or following step-by-step instructions. And when you compare it directly to GPT-3, DeepSeek, and Gemini, Claude 3.7 consistently performs better when it comes to structured reasoning and handling those multi-step problem-solving tasks.
It sounds like they've really focused on making the model more reliable and less prone to generating, nonsensical or factually incorrect information. Now, I have to ask about this Pokémon test I read about. It sounds like a pretty unusual way to evaluate an AI.
Yeah, it is a unique approach. Basically, the researchers at Anthropic wanted to see if Claude 3.7 could actually think strategically and make progress in a classic Pokémon video game. It was a way to test its capabilities beyond the usual language understanding and coding challenges.
Wait, they actually let it play the game?
Yep. They wanted to see if it could understand the game's objectives, make decisions, plan ahead, and adapt to different challenges. And the results were pretty interesting. The previous version of the model, Claude 3.5, really struggled. It couldn't even get past the starting area of the game. It seemed to have trouble coordinating actions and making effective decisions.
Oh, wow. That's not a great sign for its strategic thinking abilities.
Yeah.
So how did Claude 3.7 do?
It was a night and day difference. Claude 3.7 was able to understand the game, make progress, and even defeat several gym leaders. And that's a pretty clear sign that it's capable of strategic planning, adapting to different situations, and making longer-term decisions.
That's pretty impressive when you think about it. But why is its performance in a video game like Pokémon significant in the grand scheme of AI development?
Because video games, especially a game like Pokemon with its, exploration, battles, and character progression, they offer a really good testing ground for some of the key cognitive abilities that we want to see in AI. Things like problem solving, memory, and long-term planning. The fact that Claude 3.7 could learn from its actions and adjust its strategy, it shows that AI is starting to move beyond just reacting to individual prompts. It's a step towards more structured, adaptive, and goal-oriented thinking.
That makes sense. So it's not just about answering questions correctly. It's about being able to understand a complex system and operate within that system intelligently over an extended period of time.
Exactly. And a lot of AI models, even some of the most advanced ones, still struggle with, maintaining consistent knowledge and making good decisions over multiple interactions or in complex environments. But Claude 3.7's ability to plan ahead, learn from its mistakes, and actually improve its performance based on its experience, it suggests that we're seeing real progress in how AI can handle those more intricate dynamic tasks.
So this all points to some pretty big implications for the ongoing AI race and the competition between the different players. Where does the emergence of Claude 3.7 leave the likes of OpenAI, Google, and DeepSeek? Are they feeling the pressure?
I think it's safe to say that, yeah, they've been put on notice. Claude 3.7's hybrid reasoning model, the way it can switch between fast processing and deep analysis so seamlessly, it makes it potentially much more versatile and adaptable than, GPT-3, DeepSeek, and even Gemini to a certain extent. Then you have Claude Code, which is, arguably the most advanced AI coding model out there right now. It's got features and capabilities that its competitors haven't really matched yet.
So it's not just like excelling in one or two areas. It's making waves across the board.
Yeah, that's right. It's not just about coding. Claude 3.7 is showing real strength in reasoning, understanding and following instructions, and general problem solving. And, the fact that it's so transparent in its reasoning, that's something that none of its main rivals can really match right now. So if the other players don't step up their game soon, they could find themselves falling behind. And, there's already talk of Claude 4.0 in development, so it's clear that this race to innovate in AI is far from over.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into Claude 3.7 Sonnet and everything it brings to the table. I think the key takeaway here is that this new model represents a pretty significant leap forward in the evolution of AI. It's this potent combination of speed, deep reasoning, those advanced coding capabilities with Claude Code, and this unprecedented level of transparency that really sets it apart.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's not just a minor improvement. It's addressing some of the fundamental limitations that we've seen in, previous generations of these large language models.
So to our listeners out there, as you're thinking about all of this, consider this. Given these rapid advances in AI, especially with the arrival of models like Claude 3.7, what areas do you think will be most impacted by this new generation of intelligence systems? What new opportunities or possibilities might this unlock in your own work, your hobbies, or even just the way we interact with technology every day? The pace of innovation is just incredible, and models like Claude 3.7 are really pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible. It's definitely something to keep a close eye on.
Absolutely. It's an exciting time to be following these developments.